Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of a D1 athlete and a high school athlete pursuing a scholarship. With a wealth of experience to share, here's Recruit Me CEO Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 220 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast, an interview with the student-athlete combo podcaster, Myles Mensah. Back in July 2020, Myles emailed me about an information collaboration between us. So I started to listen to his podcast, the Student-Athlete Combo. Myles' podcast gives great information that is beneficial to the Recruit Me families. Let's find out more about Myles and the Student-Athlete Combo podcast. Myles, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate having you on, and it's been nice to listen to your podcast, and I think this is going to be a good, like I said, information collaboration between the two of us. So let's get started. I've got some questions here. Start out by telling the Recruit Me families a little bit about you and your college career and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so my name is Myles Mensah. I'm from Maryland. I was a baseball player at Hofstra University, which is a mid-major Division I on Long Island, New York, or right outside of New York City. I went to a private school in Washington, D.C. that basically was, one of the local baseball powerhouses. There was a lot of talent coming out of there, so my parents thought it was a good idea for me to go, because I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to play as long as I could. So that was a good opportunity. Ended up getting a scholarship to go play at Hofstra. Mind you, it was all academic. So school is first. School opened so many doors. I played there for 4 years. Obviously, I just graduated in May. And right now I am the host of Student Athlete Combo. And I'm, transitioning into the next path of my life. Have a lot of things going on, a lot of opportunities, and trying to figure out where really my fit is and what I want to do in the near future. But everything is going well, and I had a great experience as an athlete. I think the experience of a student athlete at any college is second to none in terms of socially, athletically, mentally, personally. Everything is great as a student athlete. You grow and develop, create a lot of relationships, learn a lot about yourself. You go through a lot of adversity, which teaches you how to, live life in the future. And I have nothing but great things to say about the experience.
Well, it sounds like an awesome experience. And we're going to kind of talk about your podcast here in just a little bit. But since we are a recruiting podcast, let's jump into your recruitment in baseball. How did you end up at Hofstra from Long Island or in Long Island from Washington, D.C.?
Right. That's a good question. So basically I honestly didn't really want to go to school anywhere like more north than Maryland was, but I did. It ended up being a good opportunity, but I wanted to go to a school like that was kind of urban because I'm from, very urban area and I like the city type of feel. I was getting recruited by a lot of different schools up and down the east, the mid-Atlantic to the northeast. I initially wanted to go play for an Ivy League school, and I was very close. My test scores weren't great, so I didn't have the opportunity to go play at Ivy League. But me and my family still valued education, so I wanted to go to a good academic school. I was in between talking to a lot of schools, getting scholarships, but like I mentioned in the past, the recruiting process for me was very up and down. I had visits with some schools that were very, very competitive in their conferences and on the East Coast. And then I had visits with some school who were, kind of like mid-major, lower tier. I was a very athletic kid. I was fast, had a strong arm, but I needed to be truthful, I needed a lot of development. I needed to be able to hit better. I was a very good defender, but as a position player at the Division I level, if you're going to make it further than college, you need to be able to hit. And that's really what I lacked. So essentially, I belonged at a mid-major school or, a lower Division I school. And that's fine because there is talent at every single school. It doesn't matter where you play. Long story short, there was a coach, a recruiting coordinator who was recruiting me at a different school that he was at. And I was visiting. they wanted to offer me. And that same summer that he, was on me, he left and went to Hofstra. So he recruited pretty much the same players that he was recruiting for another school. He went to Hofstra, called me up. I'm at this school now. We really want to have you. And they saw me once, and they wanted he's the only one who saw me. He wanted the other coaches to see me. So I ended up going to a Hofstra camp in the early fall, like I guess September of my senior year of high school. I went up to Long Island. It was an official visit with the coaches, and I was at a prospect camp where I competed for 2 days, and they saw me play. They liked everything, and I liked the school. I liked the location, and it was in the CAA, it's a very good baseball conference. It's obviously no one really thinks of it as a Power 5, but there's a lot of talent there for baseball, and they weren't really at the top of their conference. So I thought I had a great opportunity to play. So they gave me a preferred walk-on spot. I left New York that Sunday, and they called me on Wednesday or Thursday. And that's where I wanted to go. So I committed.
Actually, your situation is very similar to Parker's, where you had some ideas of where you wanted to go. That changed a little bit. And so you were able to make adjustments, and you had a coach that left one place that was looking at you. And obviously you stayed in contact with that coach, and it ended up working out. So kudos to you to continue working through the recruiting system.
Thank you.
You had an interesting college baseball career. I know you had some injuries, and then unfortunately the COVID ended your senior season. How did you deal with injuries and the situation with your final season?
Wow, that's a good question. I dealt with a very severe injury the first practice of my freshman year in the fall. The first day we got to practice, I dealt with a very bad lower leg injury where I had to get emergency surgery, within 3 hours that day. So that was very tough. My freshman year, even my sophomore year, it took like 16 to 18 months to fully recover. And that took a lot out of me mentally, but it made me, a lot stronger and everything. And then I was able to come back and be a contributor to the team. And then this past year, COVID came. It was my senior year. I had a job lined up after school, so I wasn't planning on going back and taking my redshirt year to be a fifth-year senior. Everything happened really, really fast. It was tough to let go because, I was playing, and we had a really good team that year. We had a lot of seniors. I think we had 14 seniors, so we expected to be really competitive in our conference. That was pretty good. So it was really tough to kind of see everything, leave me so fast. And I don't know how many years, 15 years of playing baseball or however long it was really tough, but I'm still really grateful that I got the opportunity at Hofstra to, be a Division I baseball player, to be a college baseball player, and experience all the things that I did.
Reading between the lines, Myles, it was super important for you to find a school that fits you, because sometimes things do take a turn and the school becomes more important than the baseball or the athletics. And you were able to lean on school, it sounds like, to get you through your athletic situation that ended up being, you had a very good year your junior year, and it looks like you were going to have a good year your senior year.
Yeah, you know what? I'm so happy that Hofstra, it was a good academic school, and I got a great education. 2020 hindsight, I'm so happy that I went through Hofstra and I got the education that I did, because I feel like I'm prepared to start working and start, the next chapter of life. I realized that obviously everyone's dream is to be a pro baseball player. To tell you the truth, I realized it pretty early in college that I was playing against some really good players, some studs, and I was being real with myself and stacking myself up against them who are, same age as me, same position. I'm like, okay, these guys are good. They're getting looked at by pro scouts, even teammates. And I'm just like, you know what? That didn't make me work any less harder. I was still a workhorse, but I really realized that I got to focus on, another something else after school, because I'm not going to be playing pro ball when I'm done.
Well, that's great. Sounds like you took advantage of the 4 years that you had, both athletically and academically, and I'm proud of you for that. Going back to the recruiting, Myles, how important were baseball tournaments, camps, showcases in your area, up in the Washington, D.C. area, to help you get recruited?
Oh, wow. At that time, they were huge. I mean, I went to a lot of baseball camps, like college camps. If I didn't go to the Hofstra camp, they wouldn't have gave me a preferred walk-on spot. So that was essentially how I got to college. But I went to a lot of I was on a travel team, for every single year of high school. We went to, during the summer and the fall, we went to a bunch of tournaments, obviously like the Perfect Game, PBR type of tournaments, but we also went to other tournaments at colleges where there were, a bunch of schools and recruiting coordinators going out to see you play. For me, if everyone on my team, if we weren't on that travel team and if we didn't get exposed and get the experience of traveling and playing in these showcase tournaments, we would not have had the chance to play college baseball. So it was huge.
It was big. So did you reach out to the colleges by email before, like send them your schedule, or did you just basically perform in front of them and hope people kind of saw you?
I would, if I say I was going to a tournament in Philadelphia, I would even though before my season, say my season was from the beginning of June to the middle of August, and we had 8 tournaments per se, I would email. I had a list of schools that I was interested in, and I would email every single school, "Hey, this is my schedule. This is my transcript. These are the positions that I was playing. Here are my numbers from the spring. I have great interest in Hofstra, or I have great interest in Penn State. I would really like for you to come see me play. And I would tailor every single email to each individual coach. So they had my schedule for each for each tournament that summer. So I definitely emailed them before, and then I would probably email them again like the week before we left.
Well, that's awesome. And what made you, what inspired you to do that? Did you have some counseling on that?
Yeah. My high school coach, he helped out a good bit with, guiding us through the process, telling us who to email. And he was very realistic with like where each player fit. He didn't tell me that, oh, you can go play Ole Miss or you can go play at Miami. He was like, you're a Division I player. You're not a Power 5 player. And he was like respectful and honest with us. And I'm very grateful for that. So he gave us a good bit of counseling and told us to do that before we were going to each tournament.
Well, that's great information, and glad you listened to him. That's hard to do sometimes as a high schooler.
I think that it's essential for all players to do that. And nowadays, social media is getting implemented in the recruiting process so much that I think that like on top of emailing coaches where you're going to be that weekend and your schedule and everything like that, I think if you can find a way to use social media to reach out to teams and coaches that you want to see you play, you should definitely do that.
Myles, how important was your high school academics and then maybe the standardized testing, the ACT or SAT? How much did those impact your recruitment?
Oh man, so huge. The academics are huge. Like I had good grades in high school. Not standardized testing, but I had good grades, like good transcript and GPAs and everything. And that opened up so many doors for me to even like get in contact with the schools that were, more academically prestigious, I would say. If I hadn't had good grades, if I had maybe like under a 3 or something like that, there are probably a lot of schools that I was interested in that wouldn't be able to recruit me just because I wouldn't be able to get in. So honestly, I was a good student. So school, I worked really hard in school. I didn't really work hard because I was like, oh, I want to play. I want to go to Harvard, so I'm going to get good grades. I kind of just got good grades. And then, my sophomore, junior year came and I was like, whoa, wow, these schools, like I'm able to play at these schools because of my grades. I'm going to try it. And I was interested in the Ivy Leagues. And now we'll talk about standardized tests. I highly encourage every single athlete to take standardized tests as seriously as possible. That was probably one of my biggest regrets going through the process. I did not take it seriously because I hated tests. I hated, sitting in the desk for 3 hours. So I did not do good on my SAT or my ACT. I did not score well. So a lot of the schools, the higher academic schools that I was really interested in, and they were interested in me, I wasn't able to, pursue opportunities there because of my standardized tests. I had a tutor that I really, my parents got me a tutor and I didn't want to use him. I was, a stupid 16-year-old kid that was just like, oh, I want to play baseball. and didn't realize that the standardized tests were the reason why I wasn't able to have the opportunities to play at some schools that I, wish to play at.
This is a good segue into asking about your podcast because lessons that you learned while you're in high school and in college kind of drive your student athlete combo podcast. So tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast, Student Athlete Combo, basically it's a resource for like current college athletes, high school students, parents, anyone who's involved with like the college athlete scene to get information about what it's like to be a student athlete, about recruiting a little bit, about just the life of a student athlete from, an off-season day, from when they wake up to 6 a.m. and have lived to the end, and how these athletes navigate their day and how they use their time management and how they study and how they practice and the mentality they have for practicing, the mentality they have for competing in games, and how their team dynamic is, everything. And then we also talk to professional athletes who were college athletes. I have, people in the WNBA, some minor league baseball players, a guy who he played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, some people who were they were college athletes and now they were professional athletes, or they are professional athletes, and talked about the transition from college to pro and how, being a college athlete really helped them out in certain parts of professional athletics and also life after sports. I have people who were college athletes, I have public figures and just people who are college athletes and now maybe they're the mayor or they have this company or they work here. They talk about how college athletics really gave them a foundation for the next chapter of life and gave them so many opportunities to be successful in life.
So you probably couldn't even start to make a list or finish the list of how many contacts you made when you got into college that may benefit you down the road.
Oh my gosh. From teammates to coach, from teammates at school, from summer ball teammates to coaches, to summer coaches, to summer to summer teammate parents, to college parents, to professors. Professors are a big one. Professors in college, to so many people. It's almost like a kind of like a network in its own. You meet so many people that right now I'm fresh out of college, so my peers aren't really in positions to really leverage me, but I know in the future, when we're all established and everything, definitely there's going to be a network and connections that can get you from one place to another. And I recently used one of my professors from Hofstra that I was really close with, to get me an opportunity out of school, right after school. So the network and the connections and everything that I made throughout my experience, I think it's going to last me forever, to tell you the truth.
It sounds like your parents taught you to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand and say hello to them.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
How can people hear the Student Athlete Combo podcast, and what other ways do you have out there to help student athletes?
Yeah. So you can reach Student Athlete Combo on any listening platform. It's Student-Athlete Combo. And then I'm on social media, Instagram and Twitter @_SA Combo _. I also have a YouTube channel where I have my interviews are on video, so you can see me talking to my guests. Honestly, like if you go through my episodes, I have a lot of people who have resources and everything. I have a website, Student Athlete Combo, www.studentathletecombo.com, where you can see all of my blog posts about, recruiting, all of my episodes, all of the guests that I had, and it links to their websites. And it's kind of like our own little network in itself.
Well, and it's been interesting because you're East Coast, we're kind of Midwest, and this, our podcasts go nationwide. And it's interesting to get different views on recruiting or different schools. So I appreciate the information that you bring to student athletes and their families so they can get ready for college and then handle situations in college and then handle situations once they get out.
Thank you. And I love the platform that you bring with your podcast and Recruit Me to, help out families through the recruiting process as well.
Well, great. Well, we're making each other feel really good right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Hey, going back to recruiting, what is your best advice to help a student athlete in high school get recruited?
My best advice, one, would be work your tail off. Work your tail off is like if whatever sport you're playing, work your tail off and you will get rewarded for it. But in terms of recruiting, I see so many, and I'm dealing with some freshmen now in high school who want to play in college and everything. But I see that technology is rising by the day, by the hour. People are using technology. So if you're a baseball player, if you're a basketball player, videotape your games, videotape your training sessions. There's so many baseball technologies with Rapsodo and things now. If you have the opportunity to get your hands on it, use all the data and all the technology to your advantage to reach out to schools. Say if you have a good game, if your parents are videotaping your game, use that and send it to coaches. Send it to coaches through email. Send it to coaches through use your social media on Twitter, Instagram. You can tag coaches. You can tag people on Twitter who will tag other coaches. There are people who retweet it, who, use their network for things like that. And also, if you have these baseball technologies like Rapsodo, Blast Motion, all these things, there are, databases and networks where you can put out your numbers and basically your talent, and coaches can see it. So right now in this day and age, I would say use your resources in terms of technology to the best of your ability.
It's a lot of work to get recruited, isn't it?
It's like a job.
Yep.
For a couple of years, it's like a job.
Yep. Leaning on your podcast and your website, what is your best advice to a high school student athlete on how to get ready to go to college?
I would say for a student athlete, time management is the biggest thing. You see kids, they get, maybe they have talent, they get to school, but it's their first time away from home, away from the parents. Their mom or dad isn't on them to study for the test or do their homework. They have influences. They got older kids, they older teammates, they got people. You can go out, drink, you can do this, you can do that. But really time management, really like have your priorities straight. You're there to play your sport and you're there to perform. Obviously you're in college, so you're going to have fun. But while you're in high school, really if you get home from school, you have practice, go to practice, and then get home from practice, do your homework, get it done by a certain time, study. Use a certain time of your night to study, and then do whatever you want to do. Because when you get to college, your schedule might be different than it is in high school, but you're still going to have to block off a time to get your schoolwork done or maybe practice extra. So there's a lot of time management things that are essential when you get to college. So I would say start that now in high school when you're talking about doing your homework or getting extra work in, because if you have like a schedule now, when you get to college, you're going to be able to figure out another schedule that works for you, where, you get all the things that you need to do, that you need to get done at a good time, and you won't be stressed and you won't be overwhelmed.
Well, and Myles, I've told my boys, as you go up in levels, if you, from junior high to high school to college and then professional, the game gets faster, correct?
Yeah.
And college academics does the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Great advice, Myles. So we're going to let you go. And Myles, I thank you for all the information, and good luck with the Student Athlete Combo podcast and all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thanks, Myles. Check out Myles on the links in this episode's show notes. Email me, brent@recruit-me.com, if you have any questions about this episode or the recruiting process. Join me next Tuesday for another information-filled 15-minute podcast. Listen to one or more of the Athletic Scholarship podcast as you drive to work or to school to help get ideas for you and your student athlete. See you next week on the Athletic Scholarship podcast.